Why South Sudan? An Every Village podcast where we answer questions about the world's youngest nation.
The question of the day is, what's it like to live in South Sudan? Hello, everyone. This is Andrew Brown, Executive Director of Every Village, and I am not the host of this podcast called Why South Sudan, but today I am the host, so watch out. This is a takeover. This is kind of a filibuster. I got the microphone. Yeah, it is. So you can hear the normal host with me, Tianna Johnston. So great to have you in the hot seat today.
So good to be here.
Yeah, this is kind of like switching roles. The funny thing is we actually didn't switch seats. We should have. I'm actually still sitting in the normal seat, and you're in the interviewer seat, but today I'm the interviewer. So anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, but we thought we'd give it a little bit of a flip over to keep it fresh for our listeners. So here I am, and here you are. So anyway. But Tianna, really, you have such a heart for South Sudan, and that's evident in for all of us that know you, and even for our listeners, I'm sure they can tell just how much you love it. I've brought you to tears several times.
You have.
So maybe I can even bring you to tears today. We'll see.
You might.
But really, just want to go back to the beginning of where things started for you at Every Village. Of course, you're welcome to go back farther. It's up to you. But I remember when I met you, and you were joining or potentially looking to join the missionary program. And I remember those days. And so, maybe just, start there and, interweave whatever you want. But I would just kind of love for you to really get into what it really is like living in South Sudan. You were there for 3 years, and you went through a lot of change and a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, I know you loved it so much, and even Party Heart is still there in South Sudan, right?
For sure.
And so you just can give a unique perspective of what it's like to live in South Sudan. So why don't you start?
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Feel free to jump in if I derail or keep going. So I know a lot of people have asked, how did I get connected to Every Village? Why did I even go with Every Village? Or how did I even hear about South Sudan? Because most people don't really know much about the nation. And so, yeah, for me, really the journey started back in 2013. I started going to a church called Hope Church, and Peter Swan, who was the executive director of Every Village, was also the pastor. So he would talk about Africa. He grew up in Africa, and so he just has a huge heart for missions. And the church really rallied around him and supported the ministry of Every Village. And so I was just one of those supporters. I volunteered. I, would go to the galas kind of thing, pray for South Sudan, but that kind of was it. I was actually working as a leasing manager at an apartment complex and volunteering with Young Life. So I was on the career path of doing that, either going full-time, full staff with Young Life or staying in the apartment industry because I just loved it. Something about me is I basically, if I'm doing something, I'm all in. Very much true. So when I started going to Hope Church, it was just so good. And so they really encourage every January to pray and fast, just seeking the Lord what he has, and just submitting, and I think just a heart of surrender, especially the year ahead. And so I was praying and fasting, and the Lord was telling me many things, but I really felt Holy Spirit say Mavolo 2015. And I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, okay, just kind of wrote it down in my journal, left it at that. Well, then fast forward to April of 2014 was the Every Village Gala. So I was going to it just to support the church and everything. And they ended up actually announcing Mavolo 2015 as the next sending site for missionaries. So I was like, hot dog, sign me up. I was a fresh believer. I mean, just a few years from coming to know the Lord, and I was just on fire. I was single. I'm like, yes, why not? If the Lord is saying it, you just do it. I tend to not think when it comes to the Lord. I just do. And so, yeah, I went through the process, and I was actually able to join the field August of 2015.
Yeah, awesome. So that's what got you to the field, and I remember meeting you in that time, and it feels like a long time ago now, right? The world has changed, and we've changed, but that's how you got to the field. But when you arrived, you joined a team that was ended up being in Tanj. That was unexpected, And it was a new place, a different people than you were expecting, a different people group, and all those things. But just talk about those first impressions when you first arrived in South Sudan. What was it like to meet the South Sudanese and be part of a culture that's so different, a world that's so different, but also joining a missionary team as well, and what that was like?
Ooh, that's good questions, actually. Shouldn't be surprised. You have good questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, definitely. So getting there, again, I think you're on this like adventure high of like, I'm changing my life. Oh, this is so awesome. I'm doing it for the Lord, and then you get there and then you're kind of like, well, what do I do? Like, what am I really meant to do? And as a missionary, like our roles specifically were to support the work that is being done there. So supporting radio and water that's already, actively, on the ground. And so as missionaries, we are really just the hands and feet of Jesus. And so how do you define that? What does that look like? And also joining a team, a family and also another single, and that already has a relationship. They already know people. They already started to know the language and everything. And so it's a bit intimidating, kind of just like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to do? And I think that is the uniqueness of living in South Sudan, is just, again, this dependence on the Lord of saying, okay, God, what do you have for me today? How do I build out my schedule to wake up at a certain time? Thankfully, the birds wake you up. You wake up with the birds chirping, and it's just so beautiful. And you hear our friends. You might hear somebody walking down the road singing a song as they walk to the market. Waking up for the day and getting started, we would do language lessons just because we needed to learn the language. And so those were very hard, especially when you're late 20s.
What's the language like?
Oh, yeah. So Dinka is the language that we were learning. We work in an area in Tanj specifically that there's a lot of languages, actually, but most people are able to speak 5 languages tops, or even maybe minimum is like 5 languages. And so Dinka, I honestly feel like it sounds very Asian or like Chinese a little bit, is how I equate it to. But yeah, it's not that hard. Once I finally got out of my head, well, this is what a sentence structure should be. Like, I'm going to the market. But in Dinka, what I say is, I go market. Like, that's it. So it's like, once you kind of got your English, American English out of your head, then you were able to understand. And I mean, we were taught kind of as children are taught. So we had to listen a lot, and then we started pointing at things.
Yeah, it was learning by immersion, right?
Yes.
You weren't sitting and studying books.
For sure.
Which is the right way to learn a language.
Yeah.
But I disagree with you that it's not hard, because it is quite difficult. It's a tonal language, and so it's not just what you say, but it's even how you say it.
It's very true.
That's tough for us, right?
Oh, it's very true. Yes, because there has several words. Yes, like the word for, not to be grotesque here, but the word for girl and testicle is very close.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
I know.
I did not know that.
So you have to say them. Yes, you have to be very correct. So we would do language lessons, and then you cook. We would have meal time for all of us together, but also you would have time to go to the market and go visit your friends and have that time. But it is such a hard shift coming from America, where we're like schedules, and you go into the office 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, depending on your hours. And you just have this set schedule, and then here it's like, this is totally different.
Well, and you talk about mealtime. I mean, just like, what was it like making food? You can't pop it in the microwave, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, so we had kerosene stoves, which are more like camping. So we would cook on those, and we all would share. So like, I think I had like Taco Tuesday,
Nice.
or I made spaghetti. I don't even know what I made. I think I did spaghetti, and Christina was Taco Tuesday. And so each family would have a day that they would cook. And so we're cooking for all of us. Okay, let me tell you about my first meal that I've ever made. Oh, it was so bad, y'all. Okay, so I was making macaroni and cheese. It was for the Beelish family, and then also Christina, who's the single with me. And so I just got there. I'm like, eager beaver, let's do this. So I'm making macaroni and cheese. If y'all have ever burnt Velveeta cheese, it does not tastes good. So I made it. I mean, it literally tasted like burnt cheese with noodles. And but it's like, we're in South Sudan. What else are we gonna eat? Like, you just have to eat it. So everybody loaded it up with ketchup, and ketchup somehow just like disguised the burnt taste. Oh, it was so bad. I was mortified. I'm like trying to prove myself to this team, especially Brad as a leader. Like, I wanted to show him that I'm like a strong woman. I can do this, and I burnt the food.
Well, that's funny because I moved over to Uganda just a few months after you moved to South Sudan.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of our first meals was with the Belises. They were in Uganda at that time for Christmas, and Kate made enchiladas, and she had asked one of the helpers in the house to buy some chili powder, and chili powder in Uganda is undiluted. It is very strong. So she used an American portion of chili powder. And she made these enchiladas, and they were great, but they were the hottest things ever. And it was like several families coming together for Christmas.
Yes.
And so that's a different type of burnt. But man, I can remember.
I remember that.
But you have to learn all different things, right? I mean, it's not easy to adjust to the different ingredients and obviously different ways of cooking. And
yes.
Oh man, it's
for
tough.
sure. Well, especially because it's not like, well, everybody, let's just go out and get pizza now. Like you literally are like, well, this is what we have to eat, and we just have to eat it.
Yeah. And it's different, right? We're so individualistic as well. You're not used to cooking. You have other people over, and you make your best foods, that you're used to. But like every day you're eating together most of the meals,
Yes.
It's like, wow, totally different responsibility.
No, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you basically become a de facto aunt or second mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, this is like the craziest thing, and I've told Brad this before. So fun fact, I call him Brother Brad. Just because, I mean, he is younger than me, but he's more like an older brother to me, really. But I go to him for a lot of things, and him and his family, they discipled me while being on the field, which I was not expecting at all. Just because, I mean, I came from a broken home and broken background, haven't seen like really great marriages, and let alone great families. And so seeing the way that he cared for his wife, Kate, and the way that Kate cared for their boys, and the way, they do a bedtime routine, and they would sit outside their hut and read books together. And man, that just like really impacted me. And I just love the way, again, when you're a missionary, you go overseas thinking you're going to do these big, amazing things for God. And it's like, he really actually wants to work in your heart, and he wants to bless you. And so that really impacted me so much. Just discipling me in like a good godly family, like those do exist, and they're beautiful. And
I love, I obviously visited you a lot, so I know exactly where you're talking about. I can picture in my mind, but like, I just want for our listeners to say, you say the Belises discipled you. In America, we hear that term and we immediately think, oh, well, Kate had a small group with you, and she'd do a book study with you, or whatever, once a week. That's not what you mean. You mean discipleship in the way it's really intended to be, is you learned how to be a Christian mom, how to be what a Christian dad looks like, what a family looks like, just by being together, living in close community.
Yes.
Totally different than how we do it here.
For sure. And I think that's how it should be done, honestly. And that's really what we were there to do as Christ followers for the South Sudanese, that we... we were going to be there when they celebrated a baby being born, and we're going to be there the day that one of their kids die. We are going to be in the pit of it, but we're going to walk with Christ through it. And that is the gift of being a missionary. But I do feel like that's really what discipleship is. It's hospitality. It's opening your home and inviting people in and having people over for dinner. And, even my Young Life girls here that I stay in contact with, I always feel like, oh, I need to do these big extravagant things of, we need to go have ice cream, or we need to go, do these fun things. And it's like, well, no, I could totally invite them into my house and have dinner with me and my husband, and see that we love each other and we respect each other. And he does the dishes after I cook. And, that's something that they're not experiencing at home. And so again, like as a missionary overseas, like that's what we got to do, So even as I walked through, friends dying, and the South Sudanese did it alongside of me. Like, it wasn't just me doing it, but they got to learn grace. They got to learn forgiveness the way that I was learning forgiveness too.
Yeah. And, I think one of the hard things about being a missionary is In America, we like having our jobs with a clear responsibility, a task list, check off, we accomplished this. Being a missionary is not like that. And in many ways, I mean, I tried encouraging you, when you joined the program, like, throw out all the accomplishments. It's about just being with the people, life on life. That's what discipleship and growing together is like. Was that hard for you? Was it easy for you? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think at first I kind of was like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? But then after, I mean, I kind of like took the challenge of, praying and saying like, God, where do you want me to go today? That is just such a sweet, intimate, and also just the accessibility, I think, to be able to do that, where here, I mean, I do have a job that I need to do, I do have tasks.
You can't do that in your bed here in Houston. God, where do you want me to go today?
I know.
Work.
That's funny. But yeah, like just being able to just really ask the Lord, and he's led me to really like seeing people, or he led me to the government hospital to pray for the sick, and I got to meet families, and just it's such a beautiful, I think, just an awareness of the Lord, that he is so in the present, and like I remember even walking to the market, I would just ask God, like, bring me somebody that I haven't seen in a while. And there's like a lady walking down the road that her grandson was at the hospital. I've seen him months ago, and praise God, he's still alive and he's okay. And it was just so, so awesome.
Yeah, I think there's a book out that I want to read. I don't even know the name of the book. It's something about Jesus walking at 3 miles an hour.
Ooh.
Right? And that's the pace that he walked. And you think about it, that's what life was like then. Mm-hmm. And that's what life is like today in South Sudan. Mm-hmm. And there is a beauty to that pace of life that we miss here in our frenetic, frantic lifestyle.
So much.
And it is a beautiful thing. Okay, talk about YOLO. So you only live once. I know you and Christina had some adventures together. And maybe, I don't know, I'm sure you can think of one or two that are just fun memories of just,
my goodness.
Just, whoa, we just got to experience this.
Oh, man, we have quite a few. We always were like, yeah. So our motto, again, I hope this isn't too much, but we would always say balls to the wall. We would just,
well,
YOLO.
If you used it improperly, you could mean girl or testicle. So appropriate.
True. So we're just like, we're going to live for the adventure and do it. And so, I have several funny stories. Okay, 2 come to my mind. One was South Sudan, one was Uganda, but I think they're just still so fun. So South Sudan specifically, we actually went out. Oh man, there's so many. Oh, one time we went out with the water guys because we wanted to see, because there was some boreholes or water wells that were, I think, broken down, but they were far. It was like super, super far, like hours. And so we decided we rode on the motorbike, which is just a motorcycle, out there. Well, I completely forgot that I am a very pale white woman and I fried. I got so burnt. But we actually had to get off the bike. Well, one, it took us a very long time to get there because there were some areas that were really muddy from the rain. So we had to get off the bike and then we had to walk through the bush. And I'm a lobster, literally so fried. And so then we finally get back home. But it was just such a, I don't know, outer body, when you really step back and think of it, where I was like, oh, it's totally normal. We just did that. But it's that is bonkers.
Yeah. There's places in South Sudan you go. You get far off the road and you're like, literally, it's been, it feels like, I mean, there are places there've never been a white person ever.
Yeah.
And, or maybe there's places where it's been 10 years, 15 years. The kids have literally never seen a white person. It's wild. It is far out there. Yeah.
The worst thing, and this is when I finally learned the language, because I remember going up to compounds or people's homes, and the little kids would scream, walking, running away. And I'm like, why? What's wrong? Granted, we do look kind of terrifying. When everybody looks the same, everybody has a darker skin, everybody has darker eyes, you literally look exactly the same, and the short hair, all the things. And then there comes these very pale, light eyes. They think they say our eyes glow in the dark. I'm like, they probably do. If they have better eyesight than we do. But it was like finally when I learned the language, then I was like, oh, so the older kids are telling the younger kids that the white person will eat them. And I'm like, no, I won't eat you.
That's great.
Yeah. And then another story. So this is in Uganda. So part of being a missionary too, we would fly out every 3 to 4 months just to get rest and respite. We go see a counselor, just because when you're in such a huge culture shift, but also so much suffering and poverty, like you need that space to process. You need that time to just catch your breath.
Well, and you can't get a visa for longer than 3 months.
True.
And you bring in all your food. I mean, there's a lot of logistical reasons too.
Very much
It's
so.
just not easy being in South Sudan. Yeah.
No, for sure. And we would have to restock, and we'd bring pasta and beans and canned corn because we at least need some kind of vegetable. So we would do that in Kampala, Uganda. Well, we decided, me and Christina, we wanted to go up north to Murchison Falls to see the falls, but also there's like a safari. So we're like, why not? Because it would technically be on the way to South Sudan. So that's how we did it. But we went there, and so Christina handled all the logistics. I do not like the logistics piece at all. I'm very thankful that God has given me a husband that does logistics, because that is not my forte.
Wait, weren't you the trips coordinator at one point?
I know, and I handed it off. Thank the Lord. So she handled all the logistics. So we ended up literally, we got off, well, first of all, we took a bus. We took a night bus from Uganda, the capital, up to Murchison. So it's like several hours. And we took a night bus. Christina almost missed the bus. And we also took a sleeping pill, which now looking back, not the wisest thing. Thankfully, we were fine. I think on the bus, their laptop got stolen. We did not, thank the Lord. It's just crazy. So we ended up getting there. Well, a guy in a taxi was supposed to pick us up and drive us to the resort, which it was, I forgot what it's called, but it's on a lower end resort. It's really not.
The Red Chili.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Red Chili is so great.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Like you can stay in a tent. Like it's super cool. So this guy picks us up. Well, he keeps driving, and then he stops because he has to throw up outside. And we're like, well, this is weird. But again, we've been in Africa for so long. We're like, I guess it's kind of normal. And so come to find out, he had malaria. So he was sick. He had a fever, all the things. Well, then eventually we did stop because his car broke down. Well, we're in the middle of literally nowhere. And so he's like calling somebody, trying to get a mechanic. Well, the mechanic's not going to come out for several hours. So we're like, well, we're here. What do you do? And we actually parked by a construction site. So then me and Christina, being the goofy people we are, we go over to the construction people, and we're like, well, can we help? So then we start like using their machete and like cutting down trees, which obviously we don't know what we're doing. Like, it's more comical for everyone else than what we're actually doing. And so either they got fed up with us or they wanted to really help us. We then drove to Chili?
Red Chili.
The Red Chili place in a dump truck, because they had a dump truck. So we now are driving down the road. We're getting to this place in a dump truck. And then we get there, and we go to use the restroom. And Christina is like, oh, there's a mamba snake in here. I'm going to kill it. And first of all, a mamba snake is very deadly. Like if she would have gotten like bit, she would have died.
Yeah. Two steps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, no, this girl, she's crazy. So she climbs, because the snake was caught in between like the door hinge. And so she climbed over into the next stall, came around, got a stick, and starts beating it. And it dies. And so then I'm like, well, I need to go get help. I'm obviously not going to do it. You think I'm a tough girl, but she was my man on the field. And so I went to go get help. And the lady from the desk was like, this is insane. Like, where are y'all from? Like, what? Who would have done this? Yeah. And we're like, oh, we live in South Sudan. And they were like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like, it was funny.
Yeah, you're like a bunch of wild women here. Yeah. Yeah, I was just, as you were telling the story, I was keeping like a checklist in my head of all the things not to do. And this is what you did.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it is. There's an expression, TIA. This is Africa, right?
Yes.
And only in Africa do you experience those things. It's amazing. And so, I just love hearing those stories of, just crazy things that you got to experience, life change, the way you were changed by living in community with missionaries, the way you were changed by living with the South Sudanese and walking with them and seeing their faith and all those things. I mean, it's a life-changing experience, and I know one you're going to take with you to the grave, right? And this love for the South Sudanese, and what a beautiful thing that you get to still work on behalf of the South Sudanese, serving them and loving them from a distance, and you get to go over, once a year as well. So that's an amazing thing. So thank you so much, Tianna, for sharing your story. I know you and I could gab a whole day, and we'll get a chance. But next time, you will be in the driver's seat again.
Yes.
I don't know whether I'll be in the passenger seat. I'm not really sure. It's your decision, but I won't be here again. So I really loved you giving me the opportunity to host. Thank you so much for that, and it's been great having you. So. We'll close for today, and just want to leave off with you to invite you back to our podcast next time, where we will answer the question, how did you design the SWC program? Thanks so much. Have a great day.